Ammunition. You're looking at a factory in Lonoke County, Arkansas. It belongs to Remington. The ammunition manufactured here is sold in many countries around the world. Per year, the company produces 2.6 billion cartridges and about 100 million reloading supplies, such as shell casings and bullets. Material consumption here is enormous, up to 20,000 tons of lead and 5,500 tons of copper a year. Lead is delivered to the plant in the form of blocks. They're rolled into cylinders and then sent to the fabrication line. Here it takes the form of a wire from which the bullets are later made. Copper is used for the production of lead bullet shells. It's supplied to the plant in the form of 1.5 meter high rolls. It undergoes a forging process. For the manufacture of shell casings, the metal passes through special presses that make the head in various steps. Then the lathes make the hole for the primer and form the circular groove at the bottom. Now the workpiece is heated and passes through a machine that will give the shell its final shape. All these processes are automated, and it's this equipment that makes it possible to achieve enormous production scales. Before the shell casing is ready, it needs to be cleaned and ground. Special tanks with chemical solutions are used for this purpose. After cleaning, the metal is heated up again to get rid of the metal fatigue that invariably occurs when the material is pulled and pressed for a long time. When the casing is ready, the cap is placed in it, the gunpowder is filled in, and then the bullet is inserted. The ammunition is ready, and the conveyor belt sends it to the packaging shop, where people are responsible for filling each box. Tanks. Now you'll see how the main battle tank of the United States, the M1 Abrams, is assembled. This vehicle has been produced since 1980, and the cost of one tank varies from $5.5 to $6.1 million. Even though today people are increasingly using automated equipment for production, the construction of tanks is mostly a manual process. More than 12,000 different parts are installed in the finished tank frame. Of course, the factory can't afford to assemble only one tank at a time. Therefore, the construction area is amazingly large. In this case, it has the length of 2 football fields. Before the tank is assembled, it passes through 16 stations, each one responsible for one aspect of the vehicle. For example, there's an electric wiring station, a hydraulic station, and a weaponry station. Interestingly, the tank spends about a day and a half at each of these stations, and all this time the workers adjust the parts without putting down their tools. For example, at this station, the foreman supplies the tank with 14 wheels, which ensure optimal stability. At this point, the tank already weighs 25 tons. By the end of the assembly, it will weigh 36 tons. The most important parts of the tank are installed almost at the very end of production. These are the engine and the tracks. The workers carefully lower the 3,860 kilogram engine into the special opening. Each track weighs approximately 2 tons and 270 kilograms. The weight of the 2 caterpillars that are mounted on the tank is 4 times the weight of a minivan, and as you can guess, the process is complex and painstaking. At this stage, the tank is almost ready. Finally, the onboard equipment and the computer, providing one of the most modern fire control systems, are installed. Artillery shells. Only truly powerful and destructive weapons can strike enemy buildings and fortifications. Artillery shells are a weapon of destruction created specifically for these purposes. They can be used to destroy armored vehicles, trenches, fortifications, garrisons, fences, and even buildings. An artillery shell consists of two parts, the casing and the explosive itself. The video shows a shell casing manufacturing plant in Valjevo, Serbia. The factory is basically a forging plant, but we'll talk a little bit more about the process. High-quality steel is supplied in blocks, which are then cut and carefully measured to ensure that each workpiece has the exact same size. Then the forging process begins, and it consists of several steps. The metal is heated and then shaped into a shell. Then the workpiece is pressed to achieve the optimum steel strength. When the shell cools down, they are sandblasted to achieve a smooth ground surface. Helicopters. Here is the McDonnell Douglas AH-64 Apache, the main attack helicopter of the US Army, which has been produced since the mid-80s. In spite of the fact that the vehicle's been in operation for a long time, today the Apache is the most widespread attack helicopter in the world. As with tanks, helicopters are built entirely by hand by trained, highly skilled craftsmen. This giant helicopter factory is located in Mesa, Arizona. Its size is comparable to the size of 7 residential blocks. On an area of 185,000 square meters, there's a research center, a production hall, as well as a test area. Every year, 32 helicopters are created here, besides modifying and updating the old ones. In order to turn an empty fuselage into a fully fledged helicopter, 160 employees work tirelessly for 3 months. The production hall consists of 15 stations. When one station finishes working, the helicopter is manually moved to the next one. It's noteworthy that it spends about 5 days at each station. First, the hull is processed, a fuel tank is installed, and the cockpit is equipped with the necessary equipment. Then the engines, the rotors, the electronics, and the sensors are installed, leaving the weapons for the end. Here we can see how the Mi-8, Mi-17 and Mi-38 helicopters are produced at a plant in Kazan, Russia. These are Russian multi-purpose and civilian transport helicopters. The main unique feature of this plant is that all 3 models of helicopters are manufactured almost simultaneously. Just like with the AH-64 Apache, all the work here is done manually. People can install a large number of components in a limited space better than a machine. Swiss Army knives. Victorinox is a Swiss company that's been manufacturing knives since 1884. Today it is the only company that supplies knives for the Swiss Army. Soldiers keep 1 to 8 different tools with them. A blade, a can opener, and a cap opener are mandatory. There can also be a small or large knife, a metal saw, a wood saw, a Phillips screwdriver, scissors, a wavy blade, a marlinspike, pliers, and even a hoof cleaner. The knife is at least 13% chromium, which gives it the ability to withstand corrosion. Around 2,500 tons of chromium are imported from France and Germany every year. The blades of the knives are pressed from a 3mm thick steel strip. The hydraulic mechanism presses down on the material with a pressure of 40 tons. Different metals are then used for different tools. For example, the knives are made of particularly hard steel. Screwdrivers are made of softer steel so they won't break under pressure. The hardness of the material changes depending on the amount of carbon in the composition. After forging, the knives are then polished. They spend about 8 hours in a tank with ceramic chips and water. The final hardness of the blades is achieved by heat treatment in an oven at a temperature of 1050 degrees Celsius. At the same time as the knives, other tools and plastic handles are also produced. Interestingly, the knives are assembled by hand. Craftsmen lay the tools in layers one by one, and then the equipment fastens them together. The knives are almost ready, and the only step left is connecting them to the handles.